She told me our marriage needed a pause, and everyone thought I'd sit there like some confused, obedient husband. They thought she held all the power. But that night, when Olivia smirked across the table and announced her big decision, something inside me snapped into place. Not anger, not fear, something colder, something she never expected. And what happened next? Well, let's just say the joke stopped being on me. Before I dive in, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and tell me in the comments, have you ever been blindsided by someone you trusted? It started on an unremarkable Wednesday evening. Takeout boxes cluttered the kitchen table, the overhead light humming softly, and the scent of orange chicken mixing with the smell of rain drifting through the cracked window. I was halfway through my meal, still wearing my work shirt, sleeves rolled up, mind on autopilot after a long day. Everything felt plain, predictable, the kind of evening where nothing dramatic should happen. But Olivia loved choosing moments like that. Moments when your guard was down, when life seemed too ordinary to be dangerous. She set down her chopsticks with a little clink. Not dramatic, not emotional, just calculated. She didn't clear her throat or hesitate. She didn't look at me nervously. No, she said it the way someone mentions they're switching laundry detergents. I think we should pause our marriage for a few weeks. I remember blinking once, twice, thinking maybe I misheard her. The room didn't tense. The air didn't shift. She spoke so casually, it almost sounded reasonable, until I saw the look in her eyes. Detached. Already gone. I set my fork down deliberately. Not hard, not loud. I didn't even lean back. I just looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman I'd spent 6 years loving now stared at her low mane like she was just waiting for the right moment to hit play on the next episode of her life without me. For 3 weeks, she added, like that softened the blow. I'll be in Tokyo for my conference, and I think the space will help us figure things out. There it was, space. The word people use when they've already stepped out of the relationship but want you neatly folded away until they decide whether you're worth keeping. I kept my voice level. Figure out what exactly? She looked irritated that I dared to question her script. Us. Whether we're still happy. Then she poked at her noodles, pretending to be deep and troubled. I just need clarity. Clarity. Space. Pause. All the trendy therapy words people use when they want freedom without consequences that I could have argued. I could have asked all the questions burning at the edges of my mind. But I noticed something that shut my mouth instantly. She'd prepared for a fight. She wanted tears, raised voices, a dramatic scene she could retell later, making me look unstable while she played the enlightened spouse who just needed a break. Instead, I gave her exactly what she never saw coming. Okay, I said. Her eyes snapped up. Confused. Suspicious. Okay, she repeated. Sure, I said, picking up my fork again. If that's what you need. Her confusion was almost louder than any argument we could have had. For the rest of the meal, she kept glancing at me, waiting for the explosion that wasn't coming. But I was quiet. Too quiet. And she didn't know what to do with that. The next 3 days were a study in discomfort. Hers, not mine. She circled the topic over and over, bringing up the trip, watching me, trying to read me like she always did. But I stayed calm, polite, peaceful, and for the first time in years, unpredictable. Friday night, she packed her luggage. Twice she paused in the doorway, like she was waiting for me to chase after her. Beg her not to go. Ask her if there was someone else that I didn't. Saturday morning came. Her Uber arrived at dawn, headlights sweeping across the living room. I handed her a travel mug of coffee. She looked at it like it might hold answers. So, I guess this is it, she said. Safe flight, I told her. Text when you land. She stood there, eyes searching my face, searching for a crack, a sign of desperation. Are you sure you're okay with this? She asked quietly that I smiled just enough to be unreadable. You wanted a pause, I said. Have a great trip. She left with hesitation in every step that I locked the door behind her, leaned against it, and let out a long breath, one that felt like it had been trapped in me for years. She thought she'd pressed pause on my life. But in that moment, all I felt was something I hadn't felt in a very long time: freedom. The house felt strangely honest the moment Olivia's Uber turned the corner. Not empty, just finally free of the constant tension I'd been pretending wasn't there. I walked through each room slowly, not looking for anything in particular, just breathing. Really breathing. And for the first time in years, the walls didn't feel like they were closing in on me. I wasn't on standby anymore. I wasn't bracing for her reactions, her questions, her moods. I ordered a pizza at 10 in the morning, blasted music she hated, left dishes in the sink like a teenager with his first apartment. It wasn't rebellion. It was reclaiming something I hadn't realized I'd lost: my own space. By Sunday afternoon, the so-called clarity she wanted had already begun bubbling up in ways she definitely didn't intend. I grabbed my phone and called Noah, my best friend for years before Olivia made it her mission to improve my social circle. Her words, not mine. He picked up on the second ring. "Man, I thought you died," he laughed. "You disappeared for, what, 3 years? Long story," I said, leaning back in the patio chair with a cold beer. "But I'm here." "Must have been one hell of a story," he said. And when I told him what Olivia had done, word for word, tone included, he went quiet before letting out a low whistle. "She really said that?" A pause. "While she goes to Tokyo?" "Yep." "And you just said okay?" "Yep." "Brother," he sighed. "She's fishing. She wants to play single without being single. You know this, right?" I knew it. Hearing him say it just made it settle deeper. Monday morning, I took a personal day and drove downtown to see a divorce attorney Noah recommended. Not because I'd decided anything, but because for once, I wanted to understand my options without her voice in my ear. The office was quiet, lined with leather chairs and law books that looked older than both of us. The attorney, Richard Harmon, listened patiently while taking notes on a yellow pad. When I finished, he asked, "Do you honestly believe she's coming back prepared to rebuild your marriage?" "I think she expects to find me grateful," I said. "Grateful she came back at all." He nodded. "I've seen this pattern before. People who ask for space usually want permission for something they don't want to be held accountable for." His words didn't sting. They clicked. "Use these weeks wisely," he said. "Know your rights. Know your assets. If she returns ready to work on things, fine. But if she returns expecting you to swallow whatever happened overseas, at least you won't be blindsided." I walked out with a folder of documents to gather and a strange sense of steadiness. I wasn't planning to leave her. I wasn't planning to stay either. I was planning to stop being afraid. By Tuesday, she finally texted from Tokyo. Settled into the hotel. "Miss you. Miss you." 2 words she tossed out casually, like breadcrumbs. 6 months ago, they would have shaken me. Now, they just felt strategic. I replied, "Glad you made it safe. Rest well." Brief. Polite. Emotionless. The typing dots popped up. Disappeared. Came back. Then nothing. If silence could be frustrated, hers was. Wednesday, I dug into our finances. Nothing sneaky, just looking at what was actually mine and what was technically ours. Turned out, we'd kept things more separate than I'd realized. Maybe she'd been preparing long before Tokyo. Thursday night, she video called. Her face appeared on my screen. Tired, perfectly made up, sitting in a polished hotel room. "Hey," she said. "You've been quiet." "Been busy," I replied. "How's Tokyo?" She gave a short summary about meetings and jet lag, then leaned closer. "I guess I expected you to be more upset." I almost laughed. "You wanted me upset?" "No. You're acting like this doesn't matter." "You asked for space," I said calmly. "I'm giving you space." Her jaw tightened. "You're being distant." "I'm being respectful of your boundaries." That threw her. She didn't know how to fight air. After the call, I realized something important. I wasn't anxious anymore. Her disappointment didn't shake me. Her confusion didn't guilt me. For once, I wasn't the one twisting myself into knots. The days that followed were a strange mix of freedom and clarity. Friday, Noah came over with burgers and beer. He studied me for a long moment before saying, "You know, you look better." "Better how?" "Like you're not carrying 100-pound weight on your back." I knew he was right. Without her constant criticism, without the emotional whiplash, the silence in the house wasn't empty. It was peaceful. Saturday, a full week after she'd left, I realized something frightening and liberating. The more space she created, the more I remembered who I was without her thumb on me. And the more I realized how long I'd been shrinking myself just to keep the peace that I didn't know what would happen next. I wasn't planning revenge. I wasn't planning forgiveness. I was simply letting the truth rise up on its own, and it was rising fast. Week 2 started with a shift so sharp I felt it before I understood it. Her messages weren't casual anymore. They were probing, breathless, nervous. She sent photos of rooftop dinners in Tokyo, neon-lit streets, fancy cocktails. All curated. All with that subtle subtext. "Look what I'm doing without you." Jealous yet? I answered with a single thumbs up. No commentary. No curiosity. Just a digital shrug. 10 minutes later she wrote, "That's your response?" I typed, "Sounds nice. Enjoy yourself." Silence for 6 hours. Then, "What have you been up to?" Instead of lying or acting wounded, I told her the truth. "Gym this morning. Lunch with Noah." The response came instantly. "Noah? Since when are you hanging out with Noah again?" I stared at the screen. The same woman who wanted space now interrogated me for having lunch with a friend. "Just catching up," I wrote. "How are your meetings?" She didn't like the subject change. She didn't like any of this, honestly, and I started to understand why. She thought pushing pause meant freezing me in place. Still, waiting. But I wasn't still, and I definitely wasn't waiting. Tuesday, I signed up for a woodworking class at the community center. Something I'd mentioned wanting to do years ago, back when Olivia still pretended to be supportive. She'd shut it down back then. "We can't afford hobbies right now," she'd said while planning her third spa day that month. Turned out, I could afford hobbies just fine. The first class felt like stepping into a life I'd forgotten I was allowed to have. The smell of sawdust, the thrum of tools, people laughing, cursing, working, not one person caring whether I was a perfect husband or whether my choices inconvenienced someone. It was simple. It was honest. And it was mine. Wednesday night, she called 3 times while I was in class. 2 voicemails. The first, "Just checking in, call me." The second, more impatient, "It's been 3 hours. Where are you? Call me back." I didn't. Instead, when I got home, I texted, "Was at a class. Everything okay?" She shot back, "What class?" "Woodworking." "Since when?" "Since I had free time." The typing dots flickered, disappeared, reappeared. Then, "We need to talk tomorrow." Actual talk. I wrote, "Sure." "What time?" And for the first time in years, I felt no dread, no fear, no pressure to prepare for emotional landmines. She'd asked for distance. She was getting it, from her own making. Thursday at 6, she called. I answered while eating a sandwich in my truck before class. She sounded strained. "You seem busy," she said. "I'm grabbing dinner. I've been thinking about us a lot. This time apart has been hard." "Has it?" I said. I didn't fill the silence. She did. "Aren't you struggling?" "I've been managing." The word hit her like a slap. "Managing? That's it. You wanted space?" I said evenly. "I'm giving you what you asked for." She exhaled sharply. "It feels like you don't care." "I care about being in a marriage where both people want to be there." Silence again. Then, "Do you even want to be in this marriage?" "Do you?" I asked. "That's what these weeks are for." "Then use them," I said, calm as glass. The call ended with her more confused than ever, and me more certain. By Friday night, Noah came over with burgers. He studied me between bites. "Man," he said, "you're different." "Different how?" "Like someone cut a rope from your chest." I shrugged, but I felt it too. The freedom, the lack of tiptoeing, the absence of invisible rules. "You think she's coming back expecting things to be the same?" he asked. "Probably," I said. But things aren't the same. Not for me. He raised his beer. About time. Saturday morning at the gym, my phone buzzed across the floor. Text from Olivia, flying back Monday. Need to talk. No questions. No request. Just a declaration. She was coming home early. I wiped sweat from my face and looked at the message for a long moment. My gym buddy, Lance, re-racking his weights, caught the look. Everything good. Wife's cutting her trip short, I said. The one who needed a pause. Lance, ex-military and allergic to drama, lifted an eyebrow. That never means anything good. I think she's panicking, I said. You ready for that? He asked. I thought of the divorce folder Harmon had helped me assemble. Not filed. Just prepared. Just in case. Yeah, I said. I'm ready. Monday arrived faster than I expected. I cleaned the house because I wanted to, not because she expected it. I finished the cutting board I'd been carving. Went for a run. Sat in the living room at 1 p.m., waiting. At 3:15, the door opened. She stepped inside with 2 oversized suitcases and a face that looked carefully composed. New haircut. New clothes. She looked polished, maybe for me, maybe for her own pride. Hey, she said softly. Welcome back, I answered. She looked around the living room, scanning the weights in the corner, the woodworking magazines, the lack of her scattered belongings. Everything in its place. Everything deliberate. The house looks different, she said. I've been keeping busy. She picked up the cutting board, smoothing her fingers along the grain. You made this. Finished it yesterday. She set it down gently. We need to talk. Okay, I said. Want water? Coffee? No. She sat on the couch, hands twisting. I made a mistake. I didn't move. Didn't sit beside her. I stayed in the chair across from her, giving her the same distance she'd demanded. Which mistake are we talking about? I asked. She flinched. The pause. Tokyo. All of it. And why was it a mistake? She swallowed. Because I thought the space would help me figure things out. But instead, it made me realize what I have. What I could lose. She waited for me to crack. To soften. To catch her as she fell. But I didn't. I simply looked at her and said, what changed? She stared at me like she expected me to rescue her from her own choices. Like the moment she said, I could lose you. I was supposed to jump back into the role she'd written for me years ago, grateful, forgiving, desperate not to be abandoned. But I didn't move. I didn't lean forward. I didn't try to soothe her. I just waited for the truth she'd spent years avoiding. I talked to Marissa, she finally said. She ran into Noah's girlfriend, and she told her you seemed different, happier, like you weren't even thinking about me. I nodded slowly. And that scared you? Yes, she whispered. It scared me. I know I handled everything wrong. The pause, the timing, all of it. I thought stepping away would help me breathe. And you came home early because you saw I was breathing without you. She blinked rapidly, as if the thought had never occurred to her. But of course it had. It was written all over her face. She stood abruptly, pacing. I know it looks bad, she said, but I genuinely needed time to think. Did you figure out what you want? I asked. Yes, she said. I want us. I want to fix this. I want to start over. Start over from what? I asked, my voice steady. From the arguments. The pressure. The resentment. We can work through it. The control. I cut in. Let's call it what it is. She stopped pacing. That's not fair, isn't it? I stood, keeping the coffee table between us. For years, I stopped seeing friends because you made it miserable. I dropped hobbies because they didn't fit your schedule. I spent every day trying to make sure you weren't disappointed or annoyed or upset. And the second you loosened your grip, for 9 days, you panicked. She shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. I wasn't trying to control you. I just wanted us to be close. You wanted control, I repeated. I wanted peace. She sank onto the couch again, smaller than I'd ever seen her. So what now? She whispered. You're done? I walked to my desk, pulled out the folder Harmon had helped me prepare, and set it gently on the coffee table. Her eyes widened as if I'd placed a detonator between us. "These are divorce papers," she breathed. "Not filed," I said, "but ready." She covered her mouth with her hands. "I can't believe this. I asked for 3 weeks to think, and you spent that time planning to leave me." "You asked for 3 weeks to decide if you wanted this marriage," I said. "I used 9 days to realize I don't want a marriage that needs a pause button." "I can change," she whispered. "I'll go to counseling. I'll stop being controlling. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't end this." The desperation in her voice would have broken me once. But all I felt now was tired. "You're asking to rebuild something that hasn't been healthy for years," I said. "I'm not the same man who sat at this table 2 weeks ago. I'm not afraid anymore." She stood again, anger flashing beneath the tears. "Fine. If you want the divorce so badly, let's do it. But don't pretend you're the victim." "I'm not the victim," I said calmly. "And neither are you. We're just two people who shouldn't be married." "Because I made one mistake?" she snapped. "No," I said quietly. "Because you made 1,000 small ones, and I finally stopped ignoring them." She grabbed her bag, her breath sharp with fury. "I'm going to tell everyone you gave up on us." "Tell them whatever you want," I said, opening the door. "People who know me will know the truth." She hesitated, gripping the handle. "And what truth is that?" "That I spent 6 years fighting for a marriage while you fought to control it." She slammed the door. 2 days later, I signed the divorce papers in Harmon's office. He walked me through the process. Simple, clean, no children, separate finances. "One of the smoothest I've seen," he said. "As long as she doesn't contest." She contested, not because she wanted to save the marriage, but because she wanted to control the narrative. 6 weeks of filings, mediation attempts, arguments through attorneys. But in the end, she had no leverage. The prenup stood. Our finances were separate. She had nothing to fight with except pride. The judge signed the final order. 20 minutes later, we walked out of the courthouse through different exits. I never saw her again. Not until much later, and life didn't fall apart. It opened. Woodworking turned into a small side business. I sold cutting boards, shelves, custom pieces. Lance took me climbing. Noah dragged me to barbecues, poker nights, road trips I'd always said no to before. I dated a little, not looking for anything, just letting myself feel human again. The freedom wasn't loud. It was quiet, steady. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I saw her at a coffee shop. Pure coincidence. She was with a guy in a suit, someone polished, someone who probably never left a dish in the sink. She froze. I nodded politely and went to order my coffee. "Wait," she called, stepping away from her table. How are you?" "Good," I said honestly. "You?" "I'm okay," she replied, though she looked tired in a way I'd never seen before. "I heard you're doing woodworking now." "Yep," I said. "It's going well." "I'm glad," she whispered. "I really am." She walked back to her table. I got my coffee, sat by the window. My phone buzzed. Lance asking if I was up for climbing that night. I typed back, "Absolutely." As I looked out at the street, watching people cross the intersection, I thought about her phrase, "pause the marriage." She thought she was putting my life on hold. She thought I would sit frozen until she pressed play again. Instead, those weeks became something else entirely, a doorway, a clean breath, a reminder of who I was before she convinced me I had to be smaller. She thought she paused me, but she freed me, and I never went back. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, even a little, make sure to subscribe, drop a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support means everything.